Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. JACALYN. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. JACALYN at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. Happy Friday, happy Saturday, wherever you are in the world. We're so happy to have you here on USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and our show today is The Power of Etiquette and Manners. And a man who knows everything about this, the principal of the British School of Excellence, is joining us today. As always, let us welcome Mr. Philip Sykes. Mr. Philip Sykes.
Hello, Dr. JACALYN. Hello, wonderful viewers and listeners wherever you are in the world. A very warm welcome.
It's wonderful to see you, and I'd love for you to share a little bit about the work you're doing at the British School of Excellence. Tell us more.
Great. Thank you, Dr. JACALYN. At the British School of Excellence, we build confidence and we change lives. That sums it up in every sense of the word. Wherever you are in the world, whatever you do, whatever age you are, we will give you those quintessential tools to give you that confidence, to elevate you to the next level and the level beyond that. We focus on children, we focus on teenagers, we focus on late teens and early tweens in their 20s, going into college and going into their first jobs. From there on into people who get experience behind them, we really do give you the opportunity to take on our programs and courses. And again, giving you that amazing confidence that will elevate you. It helps you in your relationships with your family, with your friends, and in your businesses. And we focus on those core life skills that are not necessarily taught these days in schools and universities, and in many households, they've been sort of an afterthought. So we would love to engage with anybody out there who's interested in taking themselves to the next level. And from there, we can give you so many wonderful opportunities to look at image, to look at posture, to look at body language, to look at the way you present yourself in front of an audience, to giving you those amazing, unbelievable emotional intelligence tools. And that sums it up in a very short, in a very small nutshell. We have follow-on programs such as The Power of Listening, which I'm so grateful for to have gone down that journey with my wonderful friend and co-colleague, Dr. JACALYN, and an amazing group of people on the show, and there are, on the course, and there are just so many wonderful courses that we are delivering off our organization, the British School of Excellence.
Fabulous. And I love partnering with you as well. Thank you. And thank you for taking the course. You were a fabulous attribute to the class, and I got great feedback. So thank you again.
Fantastic. What a course. What an amazing course.
Philip, one thing that we actually haven't talked about on our show is the art of the small talk, the chit chat, remembering people's names. And these are all things that are so important. Sometimes someone starts having a conversation with us literally about nothing at an important event, and we're kind of like looking at our watches, like, how long do we have to stand here and have this conversation, because we're trying to meet somebody who's over on the other side of the room. What can you tell us about the art of small talk and chit chat?
Yeah, the art of small talk and chit chat. Firstly, I suppose the world over, people call it small talk because it sounds very trivial or, very sort of straightforward. It's to break the ice, so to speak. But actually, one should look at that as big talk. I call small talk the glue amongst people, and I genuinely mean that. Let's start off by introductions. Introductions are very important, and we need to slow down in our introductions. Now, for those of you who are comfortable shaking hands, which most people, well, I say most people, a lot of people out there have gone back to handshakes. I certainly have. A handshake is an amazing way to connect with people. It is actually a quintessential tool in connecting with people. That's if you feel comfortable with it. There are obviously other ways, hand on your heart, or, the namaste, or a nice nod and a smile, and how do you do? And you can keep your hands, in front of you, not like you're handling a soccer or football penalty shootout, but your hand sort of pleasantly placed in front of you, giving the body language that you don't feel comfortable in engaging with a handshake. But let's go back to that handshake. That handshake needs to be firm. So a lot of people end up giving a quick sort of extension of the hand, and they clasp someone's hand, and we get the wet fish. No, that is forgettable, it's not memorable, and it definitely does not leave a lasting impression. So my guidance and steering is slow down when we first connect with people. And as I said, if you're comfortable with that handshake, go in with a straight hand, and we connect web to web. We want to connect with the web part of our, just below the thumb. It's a very sensual, sensitive part of our being, and it actually triggers endorphins in our human being as things go, as the chemicals go. So I've read in a couple of scenarios, or read in a couple of journals, that a good handshake, when I mean about a good handshake, that's talking about body language, chest to chest, eye contact, that beautiful smile with teeth. Your eyes must light up like bing, like diamonds in the snow. That handshake and that formal, beautiful greeting is equivalent to 3 hours of rapport building. Think about that, ladies and gentlemen, how important that first interaction with other people is. It is fundamental. Then we introduce ourselves, obviously, we give each other, we exchange names. How many of us forget names? Dr. Jacalyn, how good are you remembering names?
I'll tell you what, I think I'm fairly good at remembering names, but I'm not great at pronouncing names. Even here, I'll ask someone to say their name, and then by the time we go live, I'm like, what was the name? How do I say it?
Right, I love that. And I've been on so many wonderful shows with you where you are phenomenal at getting the pronunciation correct with people. Ladies and gentlemen, that is phenomenal. If I come into the show and say, hello, Jacqueline, hold on, it might not be Jacqueline. How do I pronunciate your name? It's Dr. Jacalyn. So it's fundamental we connect on people's names. And I love the fact, because we've had some amazing guests from around the world on this program, and they are very, very wonderful, fascinating names to get our heads and tongues around, because they come from very different parts of the world. So the name is a big, big glue in connecting with people. We need to slow down. So if I met you, Dr. Jacalyn, for the first time. Now, I don't want to get all sort of hot potato-ish on this, but the real form is, if we've never met before, I would introduce myself, and it's rhetorical. I would go, Philip, how do you do? And you would reciprocate, Dr. Jacalyn, how do you do? Then we would go into our small talk. Okay? If we've never met before, that is a real formal, old school way of greeting. Now, if one's not comfortable with it, then I'd say, hello, my name is Philip, how are you? And you'd say, hello, my name is Dr. Jacalyn, I'm very well, thank you, and how are you? That's another nice, formal, yet not as maybe sort of what certain people might look at as being pompous, the how do you do. But it genuinely is a true, important greeting, because the nice to meet you, if you've never met me before, Dr. Jacalyn, you say, Philip, oh, so lovely to meet you, nice to meet you, and you walk away and you go, oh my hat, that chap was an absolute X, Y, and Z. So the nice to meet you is actually, if we think about it, I know it's endearing, and the world over people are talking about nice to meet you, and how are you, nice to meet you, blah, blah, blah. I'm not trying to change that. I'm just giving you the thought and understanding that if you've never met anybody for the first time, how do you know it's nice to meet them? So there are these little things in our sort of, I suppose, makeup and interaction and connecting with people that we do need to think about. So, if I met you for the first time and you said your name's Dr. Jacalyn, I'm going to say that's a wonderful name. If I may ask, how do I spell it? And you would then spell it for me. And I'd go, wow, that's a really interesting way of spelling Jacalyn. I know there are various ways to spell Jacalyn, and I love that. And I might even say, do you prefer being called Dr. Jacalyn, or do you like Jackie, or what do you like? So it's important. And I know you've mentioned to me many years ago, a few years ago, you growing up, you're a Jackie, but you don't like being called Jackie for short. It's not my place to shorten your name.
Brilliant. Thank you for remembering that. Yes, I was Jackie for a number of years, and I don't like to be called Jackie anymore. I don't feel like I am that person. And as soon as I introduce myself as Dr. Jacalyn, and then someone calls me Jackie, I think, okay, I guess you don't care how I feel because you just changed my name. It'd be like if you introduce yourself as Philip Sykes and I say, hey, Phil, you didn't give me permission to call you Phil, you're Philip.
Absolutely.
But yeah, people do that all the time.
They do it all the time. Now, if you said, hey, and by the way, I actually don't mind. I'm fairly flexible, but I know you're very, very clear on this. And my sister-in-law, her daughter's Molly Ann. Don't call her Molly, because you better duck, because a book will come flying across the room. It's Molly Ann. It's not Molly. Okay, and her name is Claire, and someone I heard it when they first introduced each other. Hello, Claire Bear. Well, I tell you what, you could have cut the atmosphere with a knife. It wasn't Claire Bear, it's Claire. So, people get this idea of maybe it's charm, and it's one of those sort of endearing things that a lot of us do are very charming and endearing, but we need to understand the platform and the lay of the land. So if I call you Jackie, you could just turn around and say, you know what, when I was younger, I used to call Jackie, but in my professional career, I've always been called Dr. JACALYN. And please, I'd love it if you just refer to me as Dr. JACALYN. We don't need to be blunt. We don't need to be rude. We can, win it over by being very sort of endearing, that wonderful word, endearing. We can be charming about it. We can explain a little bit about X, Y, and Z. I mean, I know when I was growing up, my mum hated it when people called me Phil. They really did. But a lot of my close friends call me Philly, or my mum and dad call me Philly boy. Those are names that I'm very I find affectionate and warm. So I understand how important people's names are. Now, as I said to you, one of the ways of connecting with people is we forget people's names very quickly, because I go, hello, my name's Philip. Hello, Dr. JACALYN. And then, and we get into conversation. I'm going, oh, shucks, what? And you can see that I'm starting to feel awkward with my body language. I'm not connecting. I'm not present. I'm not in the moment. My mind is elsewhere. Therefore, I can't really have a fulfilled, decent, deep conversation or meaningful conversation with you, Dr. JACALYN. So let's slow down, everybody. Let's focus on someone's name. Now, if someone says, hello, my name's Mike, am I going to say, how do I spell Mike? They're going to think I'm as dim as a lampshade. They would think, oh my hat, did this chap not go to school? I wouldn't do that, but I might say, is Mike short for Michael? Or were you christened Mike? Or where does the name stem from? Is it a family name? So I have very good friend who I went to school with. His father was Mike. He was christened Mike, and his child's christened Mike. It's the tradition in their family. So there are wonderful ways to connect on people's names, as long as you're not getting personal about it. So Dr. JACALYN, if I met you, I might ask you how you spell your name, and I might say, if I may ask, where does the name stem from? And you might say, well, my mum and dad had a best friend called JACALYN, or a grandma, whatever it might be, and you could really give us a little story into where JACALYN comes from.
Yes, and I think that's a great way to get to know someone. And it shows that you're really interested when you ask that question. And for me, there's a reason why I prefer being called Dr. JACALYN, which is a story for another day. But many times people probably have a reason. They probably have feelings towards that name, whatever their name is. We do have a comment from our dear friend Adam. So let me bring that up. I think this is an important question. What's the difference in interacting with people's names and people's needs, such as autism, ADHD?
What a beautiful question. Look, and again, we've had the privilege of working with people in that from those sort of backgrounds and challenges. I've got family members in that realm as well. It's something. I suppose it's a tough one, Adam, because firstly, when we connect with people for the first time, we might not know that they have ADHD or autism, because autism can be very, very slight and you don't know. I mean, I think a lot of males in this world, all of us have a hint of ADHD, but the ADHD and autism might only come out during the course of the introduction. But I think that's where someone with ADHD, or they know they've got ADHD and autism, is just to slow down. And, when we connect with people for the first time, we want to make eye contact, but we don't want to stare someone down. And a lot of people with ADHD and autism, they don't know where to look. So our guidance and steering through our organization is create the human triangle. So the first thing is always give 3 seconds eye contact, long enough to know and ascertain the color of someone's eyes. So if I met Dr. JACALYN, for example, for the first time, I'd greet her. Hello, Philip, how do you do? Dr. JACALYN, how do you do? I'd 3 seconds eye contact, and then I would go to the human triangle. So Adam, if you said to me, what a color of Dr. JACALYN's eyes, after 3 seconds, I say they're lovely bluish color. But then I go to the human triangle, go to the nose, I go to the mouth, I go to the chin, I look at the left ear, the right ear, but I'm not peering and gazing. My eyes are just gently, slowly engaging with that human triangle. And that'll give you the opportunity to lose those sort of nerves if you are slightly ADHD or you suffer from a hint of autism. And then, again, try and make an effort with names, slow it down and find out a little bit about where the name comes from. The other way of doing that as well, and by the way, for those people out there, ADHD and autistic people are some of the most incredible people I've ever come across when it comes to super smart and agile and just brilliant at X, Y, and Z. But there's obviously there's certain areas where they suffer in social environments, and there's social anxiety and things like that. Is then to maybe align someone's name. So, for example, I introduce myself. Hello, my name is Margarita. Then Margarita pizza or Margarita cocktail or something along those lines. So I tend to use an example. My first name is Philip. Well, my second name is, but I've always been called Philip. So the Queen's husband, who's passed and who's moved on, was Prince Philip. So you can find ways and tools, but this takes huge practice. This is not instant abracadabra and a bunny rabbit's going to jump out the hat. This takes a little baby steps of practice, and to give yourself a small challenge each day. Today I'm going to focus on X. And tomorrow I'm going to focus on X. And the following day I'm going to focus on X. And when you're starting to feel comfortable in those areas, then you move on to the next scenario. I hope that's helpful.
Yes, it's very helpful. Thank you. A follow-up question I have is, this can be very awkward when someone asks you, how are you? And the person actually starts to tell you how they are, but the other person isn't really interested, apparently, by their body behavior and how they're behaving. So that could be a very awkward situation when one person actually is sharing how they are and the other person's not interested. How do we dance around that one?
Well, if you genuinely are interested in how the person is, ask them how they are. If you're not interested in how they are, then don't ask the question. With all due, I know it's a form of politeness, it's a form of breaking the ice. But I might say to you, hey, Dr. Jackalyn, how are you today? And you said, you know what, Philip, actually, I had a very rough day yesterday, and I hit the gym last night, and I just had to get my whole day behind me and just boost myself to give myself that adrenaline and energy. Oh, my hat, I'm sorry you had a tough day yesterday. I often have days like that, and sometimes I'll do X, Y, and Z to get rid of my tough day. So again, one doesn't have to dwell on these sort of things, but if you genuinely are interested in how someone is, then you need to ask that question and be genuinely interested in listening to the question and not necessarily giving any guidance or advice. This is something we've run through many times in the Power of Listening program. When someone shares something, it doesn't necessarily mean we need to open our mouths and give them huge, I think you should do X, Y, and Z. Listen, just be a good listener, take on board what that person is sharing with you and show some empathy, show some form of, if there's anything I can do to help you, I'm here for you. If you need to chew my ear off and you're feeling a bit flattened down, I'm here for you. But let's not try and be a genie and try and resolve and solve people's challenges and issues unless they've given us permission to do so. Because a lot of us are that. I'm one of those helpful people. I mean, I think I sometimes drive my wife potty, but I know when I'm about to give some guidance and steering, I pull back because I know she doesn't want anything of input at that stage. So it's, again, this is reading body language. This is engaging with people on using the correct sort of form of language, whatever language you speak. Small talk is actually known, as I said, big talk and glue. And just to detract slightly from your wonderful question, and I hope I did answer it, is that small talk is all about putting someone at ease, making people feel comfortable. So let's not ask any awkward question. Hey, Dr. Jackalyn, when you were in corporate, tell me how much money did you earn? And tell me, Dr. Jackalyn, lovely to meet you. Tell me, are you married? These are all things, ooh, baby, this guy's hitting on me. Or you don't talk about money. We don't talk about relationships. We don't talk about politics. We don't want to get into religion. We don't want to talk about those conversations that are uncomfortable because it's not nice. No one wants to be put on the spot. And we definitely don't want to ruffle feathers. We've all got opinions and we've all got thoughts and ideas. And sometimes people are very opinionated. Now, if someone is, then deflect. Change the subject. Use the art of deflection. Don't take offense. Hey, Dr. Jackalyn, how old are you? You never ask a lady how old she is. Just say, oh, Philip, age is just a number. And we deflect. We can use soft, gentle bit of humor coming into our conversation. In small talk, the areas we can talk about a lot of the time in most countries, give or take, sport, vacations. We talk about the weather. The UK, how are you? How's the weather in America at the moment? And I'm genuinely interested. Yeah, it's hitting around 90 and it's been the most beautiful morning and blah, blah, blah. Oh, are you close to the ocean? Genuinely, if you can ask someone how the weather is, then genuinely find out a little bit more about the weather, what's going on for the day, and are they going to get some time out to go and appreciate the weather. Let's not just ask someone a question because it's just a way to break the ice. And actually, as they're answering your question, you are now moving on to the next question, and you couldn't have given two hoots about their answer. So in the power of small talk, you want to break the ice with people, you want to build rapport, learn to listen, to understand, and take on board what the other person is sharing with you. Take it on board, maybe repeat a few little points that they made with you, and then re-engage. Don't compare your story to their story or your experience to their experience. It's not about you at the end of the day. Get to know the other person. Who am I connecting with? Listen to what that person has to share with you, and you'll be amazed at where the conversation can go.
Great points. Thank you again. Something that I'm wondering if it's the same approach or a different approach is a business meeting. You're meeting a prospective client for the first time. You're going into their office, you're meeting them somewhere for coffee, whatever the case may be. Let's say you're going into their office. How much small talk, how much time do you spend on small talk? For example, you walk in and you see they have a giant fish behind their desk. Wow, that's amazing fish. I guess you're a fisherman. Or you see trophies. And the reason I ask this, in my corporate career, we were taught, you should have small talk, connect with the person. In several cases, I was told, let's cut through the small talk. Let's get right down to business. So how do you gauge that?
I personally think everything's about building rapport and relationships at the end of the day, Dr. Jacalyn. Let's get down to business is very cold and blunt. And we want to build trust and rapport with each other. So for example, I met a doctor the other day and it was quite a fragile conversation. And I just wanted to know a little bit about, so I said, if I may ask, at the end of the we went in, it was a bit of chit chat in the beginning, but at the end of the meeting, I said to him, if I may ask, where did you graduate from? And we got into, and where did you originate from? And funny enough, he originated from my neck of the woods, Surrey, but he moved to Zimbabwe when he was 10 and so forth. But, I think it's fundamental, as long as it's A, appropriate, and B, it's relevant. So if for the first time, if you're meeting people and you've never, as I said, never met them before, you need to engage in small talk. You need to, so for example, if I met you for the first time, Dr. Jacalyn, around a boardroom table, I'd say, Philip, how do you do? Dr. Jacalyn, how do you do? Please take a seat. Tell me, how's your summer been thus far? Well, I had the chance to go down to North Florida and I did X, Y, and Z. And I said, you must have had a marvelous time. Tell me a little bit more about your time there. Would you recommend it? And then you would give me a little bit of blah, 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 blah banter. Then you might reciprocate and say, how about you? Have you managed to get away this year? Actually, not just as yet. I'm planning a trip at the end of September, blah, 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 blah. So think about prepare before you go into meetings. Think about relevant questions, A, that are not offensive, and B, that can give you an opportunity to get to know the person a little bit better that you're connecting and engaging with. We don't really want to rush into family because sometimes people might have an awkward situation where they've been trying to have a family and they find it difficult. We can find out if people have a family along the following lines. Dr. Jack, you might say to me, Philip, have you had a break lately? And I said, actually, I came to your part of the world with my family. Philip, amazing. Wow, where did you go? And if I may ask, what is the family made up of? And I say, yes, it's my beautiful wife, Kerry, and my little son, Harley. We were in South Carolina. So you can find out by interesting questions that are not offensive and not direct. No one would jump back at that. If I may ask, you mentioned you had a family. What is your family made up of? And people, look, hopefully most people are dear and hold their families very dear to themselves. And that is something you can really hook on. So I make a big point of going around in a certain way of connecting with people and finding out little bits about them. But the moment I cotton on to someone having children and blah, 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 I will make a mental note of the kids' names. And the next time we meet, I'll say, so how is Sophia getting on at school? She must be coming up for her end of year exams, or she must be going back to school shortly, her next level. and focus on the detail. I think this is something that a lot of us have forgotten to do, is actually focus on detail.
I agree with everything you're saying. I do have another scenario for you. What about the small talk in the public domain? For example, in an elevator, you have a full elevator and someone starts having a conversation that now everyone can hear, or on a plane when you're seated next to someone and you're talking the whole time and everyone around you can hear. What's the proper etiquette for those scenarios?
Yeah, that gives me goosebumps in a cringy way, because people don't understand about situational awareness. I think we've absolutely forgotten to be situationally aware of where we are and what is appropriate. Not so long ago, I was on an aircraft actually coming over to visit your part of the world. And I think 4 rows back, we were in the middle tier. 4 rows back on the left-hand side, 2 chaps were having a conversation as if they were the only 2 people on board. Or in their own private man's den, or whatever you want to call it. So much so that I actually asked the air steward to come over and say, please, could you ask those 2 gentlemen just to pipe down and just lower their conversation. And again, it is fundamental that we take on board. If you meet someone on a plane, it's the same as being on a mobile telephone. We don't need to be talking and walking around the foyer of a hotel at the top of our voices. We can cover our mouthpiece and talk and whisper, and the other person will hear us. And the elevator scenario is exactly the same. You can have a very polite, quiet conversation in an elevator with someone if it's appropriate. If you know the person, if we bumped into one another going up to the 5th floor of X, Y, and Z building because we work, next door to one another, and we've got to know each other. Hey, Dr. Jacalyn, you're looking very well after your holiday. How was it? You can have those appropriate conversations, but at a tone of voice and a pitch of voice, and lower the volume. We don't need to shout.
I hope everyone's taking note of that. Embracing
it is situational awareness. It's mind-blowing. I actually feel embarrassed if I'm driving with my mum, if I'm visiting them, or even sometimes with my family. I don't necessarily take a phone call in the motor car. Sometimes if I'm on speaker and it might be a family member phoning in, we all join in on the call. But if it's a call, I feel awkward. People don't need to hear my conversations. There's a time and place for everything, and I think we've become so accustomed to answering the phone at the moment it rings. The phone is there for your advantage, not the caller's. It's your call whether you take the call or not. And again, let's be situationally aware. What's going on around us? Is it appropriate to comment, to speak at the top of our voices? Some people love it because it draws attention to them. People jumping and squealing and going off like complete banshees, and it's appropriate. I'm not saying we can't have fun, not at all. I love fun. I love going completely bonkers, but in the right place, in the right environment.
A couple of things. Thank you for looking at my social media post about yesterday. I shared that I was sort of in a low energy, low vibrational mode, and I went to the gym. And so my next question is about the gym. And I know it relates to what you just shared, but I see this all the time. There's signs posted clearly, no cell phone use in the gym. And then it's been 4 times now, I guess, and it's always a man, and they decide to take the call on the speakerphone in the gym. So now we're all hearing their business. And I think to myself, is this to get attention? I don't understand why you would want everyone to hear your conversation. But my question is, what is the proper thing to do? Because I've tried different things. I've gone up to the person and said, pointed to the sign, or just said, could you keep it down? And in those cases, they really took it out on me and told the person on the phone that this crazy woman was interfering with their conversation. And another time I actually went and looked for somebody who worked at the gym for them to address it. And then the third thing I've done is I just walk away and go into a different room, stop my workout there, and just, so what can someone do if they are the recipient of an awkward situation like this?
Look, I've had those situations, and I'm sure most people have listening in on this. I mean, just to give you an understanding, a couple of months ago, coming back on a train, I'd come back from a meeting at about 8 p.m. in the evening, and someone had obviously been out socializing and talking at the time. I went up to him and I said, with all due respect, no one wants to listen to your conversation. Please keep it down. And he sort of clucked at me and huffed and puffed, but he kept it down. In your situation, I would actually go to that person, and this is where the power of etiquette and manners can tell someone to disappear and make them look forward to the journey. But you say it with such strong tonality. You say, "Excuse me, sir, there's a sign over there. It says no telephones. I'm in the gym here to decompress, and you need to respect this and the terms and conditions of this gym." And it really is. Sometimes you've got to put that seriously strong tonality attached to your message to people, because it is disrespectful on anybody, especially when there's a sign saying no phones. That's point number one. Point number two, you could say, "You know what? I'm not even going to engage with this so-and-so. I'm going to go to the other room, and I'm just not going to even allow it to affect me." And that, again, Dr. Jacalyn, as you know, we incorporate the power of the 6-second rule in our organization, where literally you count 6 seconds, maybe 20 seconds, maybe whatever, and you just think it through and just disappear, or however you want to sort of handle that particular situation. And this is something that is becoming a very, very serious challenge the world over. People not adhering to not adhering to the rules and regulations. Like, for example, I know for a fact that, let's say, some of the, and I'm just going to use an example in the UK, the private clubs in the United Kingdom, that you are not allowed to bring out a phone, let alone use a phone in X, Y, and Z areas. If you are asked to leave. And that is how strict it is. Now, interestingly, Kerry, my wife, took Harley to go and see Mary Poppins the other day in London at the West End. And now, for any of you who've had the opportunity and the privilege to travel to the United Kingdom or live in the United Kingdom, and you go to London, or you go to Broadway in the US, or love going to shows, A, tickets are costly, and B, it clearly says no mobile phone. So my wife's sitting there with Harley watching Mary Poppins, and this person next to her, answers the phone and starts having a conversation through his earpiece. So firstly, the screen lights up. Secondly, he's chatting away while Kerry's sitting there. She looked at him and said, "Please, won't you?" He said, "I've got to work." That's how he snapped at my wife. So Kerry said, "Actually, I'm at the theater with my son, and mobile phones are not allowed in here." So she called the supervisor over, and he was asked to leave. So it's tough, but sometimes we've got to read the riot act in a very sort of using the power of etiquette and manners and creating a bit of a diplomatic approach.
I'm sorry that Carrie went through that. I think the other thing is, when you do assert yourself, you could face repercussions. When she came out of that theater, heaven forbid, he could have been waiting there for her because he felt, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's kind of...
Hopefully not. I mean, hopefully not. But I mean, again, I think hopefully in most circumstances, people are not going to be complete psychos and wait around the corner. But again, for the person in your gym, I'm going to challenge you to do this. The next time that happens, go up to him and say, "Hey, like you, I'm here to decompress, but there are no phones in here, and please get off your phone." Just say it. Please get off your phone. And if they say some nutter woman's going on me, say, "Yeah, I am a nutter woman enjoying my exercise," and no, I'm joking. but just I would love to tell you a lovely story. So many years ago. Now, this is, and I'm sorry to bring this into play, but I was invited on a bird shoot in England. It's very popular to go shooting pheasant, as long as, shoot them, you eat them, put them in the pot and eat them. This is not going out blindly killing animals. So I was on the shoot with a dear friend of mine, and the gamekeeper had us all in a circle, and he was giving us the guidance and steering of the day. And one of the chaps' mobile phones rang. And the gamekeeper said to this gentleman, "Sir, please, no mobile phones on the shoot at any point in time." And he put the phone away, and the phone rang again, and he answered it. The gamekeeper, his name's Tim, grabbed the phone out of this gentleman's hand, threw it in midair, and with his shotgun, just blasted it straight out the air. Boom! Into a million pieces. So I don't think anyone's ever gone on that bird shoot ever again with a mobile phone within 100 meters.
Oh my gosh, that is extreme. Anybody watching or listening, if you have a story to share, we'd love for you to put it in the comments. So, Philip, I'd love to talk about, with knowledge of etiquette and manners and embracing the key learning, sometimes we still make mistakes. We still have social flaws. I have one story that I can share, but I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever been in a situation where later you said to yourself, "Oh, darn it, I really didn't do the right thing"?
Yes, actually, not so long ago. I overreacted. So I took little Harley, it was about 10 days ago, to a big field. He's got this little drone. And I was sitting on the floor working out how to work this drone. And a woman's Scotty came up and literally lifted its leg on my back and peed down my whole back. So I was like, I felt this warmth, and I was like, that's a bit odd. I saw this dog sort of reading his heels, and I thought, gee, that's a bit odd. And then I saw it was this white little Scotty that had disappeared, and I was like a little taken aback, and I approached the woman and I said, "Excuse me, ma'am, your dog should be on a lead." And she went, she said, "Your dog just weed on me. Your dog should be on a lead. It's not normal for dogs to go peeing on people." And my tone was a little bit brash, I have to say. I was maybe a little bit taken aback, as you can imagine. It's not every day. Maybe it's good luck, but it's not every day a dog pees on you. Hopefully not. But then she let me have it at all barrels. "My husband's just died. You don't know what I'm going through, blah, 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 blah." And I was stopped in shock. And I said, firstly, I'm really sorry to hear that. But it doesn't mean that you can't walk your dog on a lead if it's going to pee on people. And then a gentleman that was walking with her started sort of giving me oogle eyes. And I looked at him and I said, "Sir, what are you looking at?" And as I said that, I thought, "Philip, you complete and utter monkey. You should have used the 6 seconds and just slowed down." And eventually I said, "I'm so sorry. I'm really sorry about my outburst. And please apologize to your lady friend. Obviously, I had no knowledge that her husband had just died, but please just accept my apology." And I did. I felt like a heel, despite the fact that dog had peed on me. So I hope, we're human beings, we make mistakes. And I think maybe I was also, before I even sat down, my mind might have been elsewhere before I sat down. Who knows? We're always going to have repercussions from certain scenarios in our life.
Well, thank you for your transparency. That certainly is an unusual situation, and one that leaves you feeling kind of you need to say something. And at the same time, it's kind of like whatever you say, it's not going to be received well. But people do that on a regular basis. Even where I am here on this island, there's a huge field that people can play baseball, and there's courts and there's signs everywhere, no dogs allowed. And yet people have their dogs off their leashes running all around. And then as you're walking through, their dogs are coming toward you. And it's kind of like, why isn't this dog on a leash? There's signs everywhere. People just they don't abide by it for whatever reason. But you shared your story, so I'll share mine. I was in a professional setting in my corporate career, and I may have told you this before. And we've been working on this contract. It was about $5 million deal that we're working on for well over a year, and the client, the day-to-day contact, and I had become good friends. And so when it came time to actually meet with the superior who was going to be signing the contract, it was the three of us plus my boss and some other people. And we went into this big room, and the gentleman signed the contract, and I went up and threw my arms around my day-to-day contact because we were really good friends, and now we were both getting the deal done. And she stood there rigid. She did not even move. And I thought, uh-oh, I did the wrong thing. I was very unprofessional. I just went with my heart instead of my brain. What am I doing? What is the message that we're sending to her superior?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Look, at the end of the day, it could be you congratulating her for her good hard work. I mean, emotions run high at times, and that I don't know how the boss reacted, but maybe she felt embarrassed or awkward. Maybe look. Obviously, one would need to know more of the nitty gritty and ins and outs of the scenario, but that is going to be a tough situation. And I think that's where we as human beings, we do need to sometimes just slow down a little bit and just sort of use our 6 second rule, take time to digest a scenario before we sort of react, interact, or overreact. But look, as you can imagine, it's a big deal to win a deal like that, and you've been working on it for a long time. So I'm not against showing emotion and showing some form of appreciation. And I think I'm going to sort of play devil's advocate. I think in certain scenarios, you're going to find a lot of people might do that. I've seen it in places. Maybe you wouldn't get a couple of stiff upper lip sort of chaps in a legal firm jumping up and giving each other a big hug and things like that. But, there's certain horses for courses, should I say. I'm sort of trying to worm my way out of this answer. But I think case sensitive stuff, in certain scenarios and environments, one could get away with that. But I wouldn't advocate it, put it that way.
And my client contact told me later that she was horrified that I did that. And
I
that
remember you telling me
totally
this.
inappropriate. Yes. So, okay. So thank you for that. Here's another one I'm guilty of. And now I haven't been actually I was on a plane to get here in New Jersey, but I used to travel all the time for work. And I cannot deal with the fact that someone has to put their seat back all the way. Why are you putting your seat back? Because I don't put my seat back because I don't want to do it to the other person. So what I would do is I would just gently push their seat back up. And this would happen a few times, and they'd turn around and I'd say, "Can you keep your seat up, please? There's not very much room for any of us." And that didn't really go over well sometimes. So I don't know. Is it proper etiquette to push someone's seat up? Probably not.
Now, there's a tough question, and I've actually been asked this for the same question on BBC radio quite a few years ago, where there was actually, I think, fisticuffs on one of the aircraft in America, and it blew out of the water. Dr. Jacalyn, I think in that sort of situation, most aircraft these days are made much smaller. So I would personally say, would you mind if I put my seat back? To the person, say, come, if you don't mind coming back a little bit, that's okay, but I've got a little bit of leg, I've only got a little bit of room here. I think where it's really appropriate, if seats are all going back, so let's say the plane's taken off, people put their seats back, and then the meal's being served. I think people need to be more sensitive that if I've got my table down and I'm being served my meal on the aircraft, the person in front should be considerate and push their seat forward so that I can eat in comfort rather than having a seat literally almost touching my nose. And I always ask an air steward, air hostess, to ask the person to put their seat in front of me forward if they haven't done so. It's a tough question, because a lot of, and funny enough, a lot of the low, for example, we have a brand in the UK called EasyJet. They don't even allow their seats to go back. It's a solid seat. Whereas obviously the more long-haul flights, the seats recline. But that's a tough question. And I think just you need to sort of communicate with the person in front of you and behind you and using the power of etiquette and manners and polished language skills and tonality.
It is a tough one. And I feel like if everyone kept their seat up, then there wouldn't be a problem, or everyone has to have their seat back. But then the last person, their seat doesn't go back, the one that's all the way in the back of the plane typically. So, okay, what about if you're in a seat and the person next to you falls asleep on top of you?
It could end up being your first date. You never know. Dr. Jacalyn, that's a tough one. No, look, that happens. I mean, my mum tells a story. She came across an economy class X amount of years ago. One chap had an elbow in her one boob, and the other guy had fallen asleep on her, and she was just and she didn't know what the hell. I mean, she felt very uncomfortable. I think we've got every right to say to that person, just touch them on the shoulder and say, "Excuse me, please, you've just encroaching in my space here." And look, there's no excuse. A lot of aircrafts do have those little things that the top of the seat does. Even the cheap seats have those little wings that you can literally put in to prop your head from, sort of allowing you to fall asleep on the next person's your neighbor's shoulder on either side. And again, start traveling with one of those neck cushions to stop you from doing that. I think, at the end of the day, you've got every right to sort of give the person a very gentle nudge and say, "Please, would you mind? You've just you've nodded off on my shoulder." And the other thing is, there's another debate about is whose armrest is whose armrest on these aircraft or in the theater. I've been phoned up about that by various radio stations, and that's another, again, there's no etiquette in this, believe it or not. That's a tough call. So they talk about people sitting in the aisle. They get because they're in the aisle, they can maybe stretch their feet slightly and they get that armrest on the aisle. And then the person stuck in the middle should ideally have the access to the two middle armrests, and the person near the window can at least have one armrest and lean against the side of the aircraft. So there's a big debate out there about whose armrest is whose and that sort of thing. So we could talk about this for a long time, but I don't think there's any sort of appropriate protocol or etiquette attached to whose is whose.
Thank you. We do have a couple of comments that I'm going to get to. I want to share something else. Both of these scenarios were when I was sitting in first class. I was lucky because I had a lot of points and I could upgrade. Both times this happened with people who were very well-known people. And the one time the person was sitting next to me, CEO of a global corporation, and he had taken out some documents that were from a board meeting, and he placed them on the console between the two of us, and he fell asleep. And I looked over and I could see the name of the company and the fact that it said board meeting, whatever the date. And I was like, oh, I don't want to read this. This is none of my business. So when he woke up, I said to him, another person probably would have read this confidential information. I did not, but I wanted to make you aware of the fact that in the position you're in, this is a dangerous move for you to take these papers out and even be reading them on a. So he really thanked me. And the other time, it was an NFL football player who actually went to the Super Bowl that year, and he had taken out a proposal that someone had sent him for advertising to be a spokesperson for their brand. And he was sitting ahead of me, but through the, between the two seats, he was holding it up and it was easy to see it. And so it ended up afterwards, as he was leaving the plane, I went up and I said to him, I just want to let you know, you have to be careful with documents like that because it looks like it's confidential. I didn't read it, but someone else might have. Anyway, he asked me out for a date, which was nice, but I didn't get together with him.
There's your first date. You see, there's a consequence. Falling asleep on your shoulder, reading documents, you're going to get a first date. Dr. Jacalyn, that is so important. Situational awareness. Again, we do need to be. I mean, again, people verbally giving their credit card details over the telephone on the train to a travel agent, name, address, last 3 digits on the credit card, blah blah blah. We need to be vigilant because nothing. I hate to say it, but nowadays more so than ever before, with instant photography and instant recording, we really do have to be vigilant, and we've got to look at a time and place to read our very sensitive material, because that's how leaks happen, and people get the wrong end of the stick. People start to say things that they don't know anything about, but they've seen 1 or 2 lines, and all of a sudden they let all of a sudden it becomes Chinese whispers, and it gets around. And we do, and you did the right thing, and thank goodness, fortunately, you're a very scrupulous, amazing person. But there are a lot of people who wouldn't be. A lot of people who might even use that as ammunition. So we do, please, ladies and gentlemen, who is ever engaging in this particular show with us today, or listening to it on the radio, or going to watch this later, please be vigilant on your dealings when it comes to business. And it's, again, very similar to people having a business meeting in public places, and they think they're talking softly, but someone's sitting behind them and they can hear every word about a very sensitive matter. So we do need to be vigilant and very careful.
It's really true. In addition, you have this responsibility and accountability to protect your corporate information, your documents for your shareholders,
Absolutely.
your employees, and you're not maybe thinking about all the ramifications if this information gets into other people's hands. So I want to also highlight, we have someone on LinkedIn. We don't know who you are, but thank you for posting. Good afternoon from Germany. I tend to gently push my knee in. I'm sure you're talking about with the seat being back, and say, are you comfy?
No, and I know that, look, it happens. I mean, traveling with an 8-year-old and his feet go onto the back of someone's chair, I get really anxious for the person in front because it's not pleasant at all. I think let's use a bit of hint of charm, power of etiquette and manners, and just say to the person, would you mind giving me a bit of extra leg room here? And that, I'm not a very tall person, so I'm very rarely affected with a seat coming back, give or take. I know they've made planes smaller, but for people who are tall, it is an awkward situation. But shoving a knee into the back of someone else's chair and sort of tit for tat, I don't believe anyone's going to win. I think you're just going to upset the person in front. You're upset and no one wins. So rather have a nice, lighthearted sort of gesture and conversation, and talk it through.
So like our new friend in Germany who's pushing his knee in, or me pushing his seat back up, these are not the best approaches.
No. And again, look, like you talked about in the gym scenario, if you're fortunate enough to be on an aircraft that is not so busy, then see if you air steward and air hostess could move you to a chair that's not going to upset you. But a lot of nowadays aircraft seem to be pretty jam-packed from my experience over the last couple of months. But it's actually surprising, and the cost of air flights at the moment have just shot through the roof. But again, I think the whole sort of tit for tat aggravation, it's not really fair on anyone's behalf, because the seats are there to recline. So, I'm not saying it's the person's right in front of you to recline, but that person who wants to recline could look back and say, would you mind if I push my chair back slightly? So there's many ways of skinning the cat, so to speak.
Very true. Thank you. I have one more question when it comes to public transportation, and this is personally a pet peeve. And I've seen it happen so many times. I don't know. I was raised, my mother always said, if you're going on a flight, get dressed. Get dressed, like this is an important thing. And of course, air travel isn't what it used to be, but I still believe in that. And I'm always shocked. I feel like people are on their worst behavior when they're on a plane or a train or a subway. They take their shoes off. What is up with this? Taking their shoes off. Sometimes they don't have socks on and it's their bare feet. No. And then they get up, they're walking around. I don't know. I'm not judging. I just think it's from a hygiene perspective. What do you think?
Absolutely. I tend to travel with a pair of sort of very light slip-on slippers, because your feet do swell when you travel. Either that or travel with a pair of travel socks, which they used to give you back in the day when aircrafts, even in economy, used to get a little, pack of various things. Nowadays, you don't get offered anything, which is one of those things they're saving costs. But I would definitely look at the hygiene point of view. Absolutely going into those loos on board the aircraft. That is for sure not going to do you any favors walking around barefoot on an aircraft. I would imagine, despite the fact that they've been cleaned, they're not going to be deep cleaned, and you're not going to look at your feet at the end of the day of just walking around a floor that actually has been cleaned, and you'll see how quickly and dirty your feet get. So you're 100% correct. I mean, and also talking about traveling, I think, mind what you wear. I mean, one wants to be comfortable on board the aircraft, but dress to impress. Then once you're on the aircraft, take off your blazer or carry a pair of long tracksuit pants or whatever, and get comfortable. But I think making an effort when you get on board an aircraft and when you leave an aircraft, an important part of one's makeup.
I agree, because somebody's always watching, and this is something that people forget. You never know when you might encounter somebody from a plane or a train again. It could be someone who's in charge of a big deal that you have, or it could be someone who you might end up falling in love with. You don't know, but people remember how you look and also how you treated them. So saying that, I realize now, for me, pushing someone's seat in front of me was a no-go, and I'm not doing that anymore.
Absolutely. One person, one opportunity can change your life for the rest of your life.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for another show chock full of tips for us when it comes to the art of small talk, when it comes to how to deal with social situations that are uncomfortable, personal shares by the two of us. I just love doing this show with you, Philip.
I love it so much, and we're going to have so many wonderful things coming up. Leanne and the team are looking at some great topics and great guests coming up and that sort of thing, and it's always a joy. It really and truly is always such a joy, and I really do hope that more and more people start connecting with us on usaglobaltv.com and embracing all the shows, Dr. Jacalyn, that you tirelessly work at, and you bring on the most phenomenal people from all over the world. And not only that, there's lots of wonderful fun and laughter and entertainment. So, again, thank you for everything that you do and for actually creating such an amazing platform.
Thank you, Philip. It's my pleasure. I just want to ask you to give a high-level overview. One of the shows that we did recently was a real hit, was about the English afternoon tea, and people can find that over on our YouTube channel, USA Global TV and Radio. But tell us a little bit about what you covered there.
Great. So English afternoon tea, funny enough, it's English afternoon tea week this week. And it's amazing how popular the afternoon tea custom is. And it's not high tea, everybody. It's English afternoon tea. High tea is completely different. And that comes from a whole different scenario of when the workers that were working in the fields and working in the mines and in industry who were going home for their tea which was the early evening meal, and they sat high up at the dining room table. That's where the term high tea comes from. But the afternoon tea is such an amazing topic for conversation. One can learn so much about one another. You really do embrace that time and energy with each other. There's etiquette attached to how you engage with the scones. It's not a scone. There are ways to, you're only one or two sandwiches at a time. The different styles and types of tea. There's certain teas that really do marry up with certain types of cuisine. It's a fascinating topic and subject, and tea has had such an amazing, prolific effect on history. There is so much that we look at this lovely, humble, gorgeous leaf that's been created for us to appreciate. But the history behind it is phenomenal. It's changed the world in so many different ways, from taxes to clothing to smuggling to people bricking their windows up to, it's a fascinating subject and topic. So any of you out there, English Afternoon Tea, here at our organization, we actually run English Afternoon Tea modules where I have the privilege of engaging with you. We go and have an English Afternoon Tea experience at one of our amazing partner hotels for about 2.5, 3 hours. And we go through this journey of English Afternoon Tea. We engage in afternoon tea together and embrace that moment. So it is a truly wonderful area to discuss and topic.
It definitely is. I was able to go over to the YouTube channel and get the link. So for anyone who is interested, it's a fascinating show, as all are with Philip. There's the link. It's posted on all the social media platforms. So do take a look. It's so much more than just leaves in a cup with water.
Absolutely.
It's amazing. So, and Philip, I'm going to spotlight you again. What's the best way for people to sign up for some of your courses, your one-on-one coaching, and all the offerings that you have there at the British School of Excellence?
Thank you, Dr. Jacalyn. Ladies and gentlemen, www.thebritishschoolofexcellence.com or hello@thebritishschoolofexcellence.com. Please send us an email. Have a look at our website. We've got a live chat there on Instagram, and we love engaging in conversation. We love people who want to book a Zoom call, have a phone call, have an email backward and forward. An amazing team behind this organization on every level, and we truly want to give people those tools to change their lives on every level. We are passionate about what we do, and it is all about showing up every day. Be better than you were yesterday. Show up every day with a vision to be excellent. And this is about being consistent in your life, not just having to put on the charm and elegance for a moment. It's about being consistent of who you are. And at the end of the day, if you really want it summed up in a nutshell, being a good human being, making those changes, because I promise you, when you develop the skills and tools that we show and offer, doors will open for you that you could not even begin to imagine. Your life will change.
Beautiful. Thank you, Philip. I know that you've heard this expression before, but it's really true. Do the right thing even when no one's looking.
Always. Always. Because believe it or not, you just never know who might be looking, and you're not even aware of it.
Somebody is watching somewhere. So
Absolutely.
I look forward to having you back next week and chatting with you in between about some projects that I think we can work on.
Wonderful, Dr. Jacalyn. Thanks as always. Have a magic weekend. And I can't wait to speak to you over the next few days.
Perfect. I look forward to it.
All right.
Take care. Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye. I hope you are enjoying this show as much as I am. We are all about education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. And I invite you to go over to our website, usaglobaltv.com, and book your session. We have 29 different programs that you can go ahead and book in. And maybe you have something interesting that you want to share about your life's journey. We'd love to hear it. So again, if you're on our YouTube channel, USA Global TV Radio, please do subscribe so you can be aware of all of our shows. Ring that bell. And if you'd like to be a guest, go over to our website, USA Global TV and Radio. Thank you so much. I look forward to coming back with our next show. We do have some more comments. Let me just take a look. Okay, let me see. Hi, Derek. It's been a while. Nice to have you. Quick question regarding etiquette. As say you are a bit of dabbling dilettante in the art of creative writing, and someone shares a fantastically funny anecdote about skeet shooting someone's cell phone, how do you go about asking them for permission to possibly use that for a story, for a scene in a fictional script or book? Wow, that's a good one. And you know what? Philip is not actually at his desk right now. Oh, he is back. Let's bring him on if he's still here. Philip, you still there? Sorry.
Yes. Would you like me to answer something?
Yes, please.
Go ahead.
Okay. It's regarding etiquette. So this person wants to know if someone shares a funny anecdote about skeet shooting someone's cell phone, how do you go about asking them for permission to possibly use it for a story, for a scene in a fictional script or book?
Say that one more time. I need a little bit more clarity on this.
So I believe what Derek is asking, Derek is an artist. If you see something that someone's doing or someone's created something and they've said something and you'd like to take what they've said or done and put it into your work, how do you go about doing that to ask for permission?
I would just openly say thank you so much for the compliment and for those incredible words. Please, I'd love the opportunity, if you would allow me to engage and utilize what you just shared with me. That's what I would do, and that's what I've done in the past, because, you know, it's just asking politely for permission rather than just sort of plagiarizing that or that sort of thing. You know, it's important that we understand that this is a very, you know, a great way to sort of promote and market ourselves, and especially when it comes from someone else's mouth. If they are happy to allow you to use those words, then boom, you've got a win-win situation. And you can even quote the person. You can say, I'll put your name there. They might say, no, but use it.
I'm so glad that you said that, Philip. That's really important because sometimes we have to give credit to people for their work. So either ask or have them sign a release. I know everything I do now when it comes to creating my books, the song, this platform, I have people sign releases because then it's very cut and dry, because you don't want
100%.
somebody later, years later, to say, oh, you stole that from me. I remember you and I were here and you heard me say that, et cetera, et cetera. So thank you, Derek.
Yeah.
Jared,
Derek, there's one thing called MACE in life. My ass is covered. MAIC. My ass is covered. MACE. Just be very clear on that.
Thank you. Thanks again, Derek.
Yeah.
And then also from our new friend in Germany, we still don't know your name, but that's okay. Always be a gentleman. Thank you. And thank you for participating. Thank you for engaging. Derek writes, love it. And thank you. Thank you, Derek.
Thank
All right,
you,
my
everyone.
friend. We are signing off for now, and I look forward to catching up. Thanks to each and every one of you out there for engaging with us. We really do appreciate it. We'll see you again soon. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye, Dr. Jackalyn. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, Philip.